stay out of it, but this is one of those situations where no matter how right or wrong your protest is, shutting down a freeway, not a good idea. I'm Stu up in Skyfox. Back to y'all in the studio. They move around so quickly, but let's see, it's ceasefire. And trying to stay out of it, just calling it as we see it. Not sure why they're allowing this again, and this is shutting down the entire southbound 110 freeway in the downtown Los Angeles area. Again, the people that they're holding up are the ones that are where the tempers are starting to flare. Somebody just throwing some water on some of those protesters. But again, this is going to be going on till these people get off the freeway safely. And how they're going to do that, when they're going to do that, it's a tough one to say right now. Yeah, that backup is huge out here. We heard actually a California Highway Patrol officer call it in just moments ago before we arrived. They said the backup is solid all the way to the 5 freeway. I'm wondering if he is caught in that. Maybe he was responding to that. Well, there you go. You can see they actually have created brakes right now. They're pushing people off onto the 101. So they're not allowing any extra traffic to build up here. So that's their plan right now. So if the 110 from the 5 or from the south from the 5 or through the downtown Los Angeles is part of your drive this morning, I would avoid it as long as possible because, again, we don't know how long this is going to be going on, but I can tell you right now, tempers definitely flaring as some of these drivers making their way up to the front, expressing their opinions on this shutdown. But as it stands, we haven't seen anybody seriously injured. We haven't seen anybody going into custody. And again, California Highway Patrol, they are here, but they are right this moment just allowing this to go on. And you can see that again, we just report the news. If it is something that we all stand for, we're all about it. The way they're presenting it is not the way that I personally would do it. Seeing how they're shutting down that freeway, they're disrupting so many people out there. Somebody might lose their job over this. So this is a big deal for a lot of folks out there, and it is definitely a problem for the public. Yeah. Well, those are the big questions that for sure, and you know these are things that maybe Ella could come up with, or we could talk to him about. He's our political expert for sure. But what I can tell you is that tempers really started to flare just before we went live. There was an actual fist fight. There were a number of motorcycles. You know how the motorcycles make their way up to the front of the pack, and there were a bunch of motorcyclists out there. And when it started becoming a little bit hectic, they just started pushing their way through. We didn't see any injuries. That might have been what that one person was talking to, this person right here. I was wondering maybe that's what they're talking to these protesters about, asking them if they're okay, because there was some physical altercation going on, especially in that front, well, right there where in the center of the screen. Those motorcyclists were pushing their way through and just basically just using their bikes to push their way through that crowd. But right now you can still see a number of people out of their cars. You can see, you just read the body language, not happy about the situation. But again, California Highway Patrol, I'm sure they're saying, up there they are, and they've got the wire ties out. So they are going to start taking these folks into custody one by one. I'm sure they're probably telling the drivers to get back into their vehicles, because I'm sure as soon as they start moving them off of the freeway, they're going to start opening up that freeway. So they want all the drivers back into their cars. But again, you can see it right there. And boy, they got a number of those wire ties. So they're going to start taking these folks into custody. And my pilot telling me that there's more police cars arriving, or California Highway Patrol officers arriving. So maybe that's what they were waiting for. They were just waiting to get these backup officers here, because they didn't have a way to move or transport all these protesters that are going to be taken into custody. But that process just getting underway. And again, we've seen this in the past. This probably is not going to happen very quickly. They're going to talk to each one of the not going to happen very quickly. They're going to talk to each one of the protesters and give them the opportunity to maybe walk away from all this and or custody. They're going to read them their rights. So this is going to be a slow-moving process, but it's definitely a step, as I would say, in the right direction. I'm not saying I'm for or against what they're protesting down there, but definitely to get the freeway open again, this is a step in the right direction.
It looks like everyone, from what I can see, at least they're complying. It's like they know they're coming to not take them into custody, tie their hands, so they're getting up, they're turning around. For the most part so far, it seems like everyone down below is complying.
Yep, they seem to be complying. We don't see any resistance, and I'm sure this was part of the issue, and that might have been what the legal, like you were talking about, the legalese people right there, and then also that one person from the this guy right here was talking to each one of these individuals, probably telling them this is what the process is going to be. They're going to wire tie you. They're going to take you into custody, and you know, and maybe they have a plan for how to get them out afterwards. But right now, this is a positive note for the drivers as they're starting to take these protesters into custody.
It'll still take some time to remove all of those individuals that are sitting across the freeway right there. And keep in mind, even if the individuals are not across the freeway, the CHP cars are behind that in the shot you see. So those have to move out of the way before even reopen on the 110. And there you see the first couple protesters being put into a patrol car, taken in to get processed. But how's the backup looking now? Were some cars able to reverse? Because I know in some situations makes modifications and are allowing drivers to go the other direction, but it doesn't look like the case at this point. Wow, Stu.
Doesn't look like, yeah, it doesn't look like that's happening today. Maybe a couple of them. There you go. You know, it is California. We know our drivers. We know how we are out here. We need to be where we need to be. And I think you are right. You're totally right, Sandra. You can see the officers. You got a couple of California Highway Patrol officers down there, just kind of controlling it, saying, you know, okay, you can make a U-turn. You can come up this way and then make your way onto the 101. That seems to be the plan right now. So they are starting to alleviate all of that traffic. You know, our first responders, California Highway Patrol, Central Division, these guys, you know, you got to love them. Their first priority is, of course, safety, but keeping that traffic moving is a huge matter for the California Highway Patrol. And today, they've got a real road play, and they are taking care of that as best they can, and you can see them taking again. You got to wonder how they're going to get all these folks off the freeway, even with the extra squad cars that are showing up right now. They're going to have enough, even if they put 3 in a car. I still think they're going to need some more units down there to get all the protesters off the freeway.
Yeah, it'll take some time for sure, and gosh, I mean, you could imagine why and see why those tempers are flaring from the motorists. I'm not knowing what's going on and then being stuck in all of this and then arguing with the protesters as well. But slowly but surely we are seeing those demonstrators getting processed and CHP trying to open up lanes. But again, who knows when, in terms of when these cars will be able to go through 10. But I guess some motorists are still outside their cars, Stu, watching this all take place.
Yeah, they're watching. There's got a lot of phones out there. So you know, as you said earlier on, is it getting the word out there? It definitely is. I'm sure that everybody in this group is going to be talking about it, and you've got that effect where they're going to tell friends, and their friends are going to tell friends. So it is definitely going to get that message out there. But again, this is not the way to do it. Stopping traffic on the freeway, dangerous to begin with. And then we did see, like I said, right before we went live, we did see at least one full-on brawl going on with at least one of the protesters and a driver. And then when those motorcyclists just pushed their way through the crowd, people could have been injured. Maybe people have been injured for all we know. But thank God it wasn't serious injuries. And again, California Highway Patrol, now they're tasked with this huge task. Take care of all of this. They've got to process all these folks, so they're going to be busy. And again, this is still happening out here in downtown Los Angeles on the 110 Freeway South.
So I'm reading a little bit more about the protest. As I mentioned, so this looks like it was organized by, according to the information we're getting, American Jews holding a protest near downtown LA. Plan is to sing, chant, ceasefire now, and no money for war crimes. They also have, which we do see here in that image, a 7-foot-tall menorah right there in the middle of the freeway. And they're basically calling for an end to the ceasefire, demanding that money not be spent and more people not be killed in the war that's been going on for quite a while now between Israel and Hamas. So it's interesting to see this group and this crowd. Will, I'm sure, learn more about them as time goes on, and maybe we get a chance to talk to them. But that is why we see that they're wearing, the black shirts with the white lettering that says "Not in our name."
I just because I have a little bit of time with both of you, I always have issues with the verbiage that we use when we talk about these seems to have a negative connotation, or is this a rally? When you use the word rally, that sounds a little bit more positive. You just never really know when we arrive on these situations, how to really kind of portray the story, and you always want to do it in the most middle-of-the-road type of way, and that is not a pun today at all. But when you're starting to stop traffic on the freeway, you're putting people in danger. Your group folks are getting in danger themselves. You don't know how any of these people are going to react. You don't know whose car you're sitting in front of. Some of these folks, they might have, luckily they weren't, and luckily nobody was hurt. But this could have gone a very been badly injured out here. Again, though, California Highway Patrol now stepping in, and you can see them taking them into custody one by one. They're bringing them over to the cars, and I believe that they're going to start. And I know, because we've seen some of these in the past, they're not going to let any of this traffic, all these protesters off the freeway, and it is safe for the traffic to start moving again. But you can see some of those drivers now making their way back to their cars that are stopped. And I understand look at that, there you go, that's what I thought was going to happen. There's like 22 squad cars down there from the California Highway Patrol, and of course each one of those vehicles, they have their officers in there. Go and pick up a couple of passengers to bring back to their station.
Think about all the manpower involved in this, the is to respond to a situation like this, and then all the livelihoods of the motorists behind the protesters as well. But clearly, you know about it, and a lot of people out there wanting their voices to be heard. But in this way is definitely show stopping and traffic stopping.
Looks like they got half of the group, right, because they had completely blocked the entire freeway. So they have half of them already taken in, and we're waiting to, it's going to take a while. This obviously is going to. But I do want to say that's a good point you bring up regarding the words that we use. I mean, words really do matter, especially when it comes to sensitive topics, topics that are just filled with so much emotion. And maybe, you know, some people do take saying a protester as something that's of a negative connotation. So you could call it a demonstration or demonstrators. But yeah, it's interesting. I think the more we cover these types of stories, we realize who are associated with whatever is happening, or people who have some emotional connection to the story. Every word say can hit someone in a different way.
Definitely, and you know that's part of our repertoire and with me it's usually breaking news, and sometimes the breaking news is something like this. And again, if I agree or disagree with what they're saying, and in this case, you know what, anybody that knows me is, you know, I just don't want to see anybody get. Want to see any, you know, but how they present themselves or how they feel that these folks are taking part of it, you know, that's a personal issue. And again, right now they took their personal issue and they inconvenienced so many folks out here today. And some people might say, well, some people are dying, and you know, but you know what, that's not this person's fault right here, you know. They're being dragged into this, and that is what the issue is today. And a lot of these folks, they are stuck in traffic right now. They're going to be late. Hopefully nobody is going to get in any kind of serious issues with their job or whatever they need to be. And of course, these protesters, I have a feeling that they're going to take them in, they'll process them, and then they'll just release them. But like you said, they definitely got their message out. There's no doubt about it. We're talking about it, and we're seeing what's going on.
It looks like they're chanting or perhaps singing, or those types of gestures down below from those who are still left over. What time, Stu, just remind me, what time this began? Because we were on the scene pretty quickly, and I know it seems like for the people who are stuck in their cars, an eternity. I would say they are moving rather quickly, considering what they're dealing with.
Well, I'm at desk, and I mean that very honestly, got a hold of me right about 9:20. 9:20 is probably when this became an issue, and we got on the air pretty much as soon as we arrived. So this has been going on for coming up on an hour right now, and I would venture to say it's going to be a solid hour of lane closures before they're going to have everything reopened and they have all these folks in their cars. Let's take a peek at what's going on the northern end of that right there. We're watching some of those cars making those U-turns, and they still are. Look at that. Well, we missed that at construction, making a U-turn, and that's another one. That's a piece of equipment that's a job, and a bunch of other people are waiting on it to do their jobs. So it has been very inconvenient for a lot of folks, and some of the people even here on the transition roads off of the 101, they've already turned their cars around and they're trying to figure out how they're going to make those U-turns and get back onto another freeway safely. Again, California Highway Patrol, they've been tasked with this, and I would say they're doing an amazing job keeping the public safe the best they can and getting here as quickly as possible. That was what I was kind of wondering about, why they weren't being more active in the beginning. But at one point, 25 police cars, 25 California Highway Patrol cars, and of course officers all here to help take care of these protesters and get them into custody and the freeway reopen.
Wow, I saw somebody waving at you, Stu. Obviously, the motorists aware of the situation by seeing our helicopter up on top. This is a way you're celebrating your birthday, spending your birthday with newsworthy events.
We do have Chelsea on the way too, Stu. So hopefully, when she gets there or anywhere close to that vicinity, we can get some more information. At this point, we're relying on you, obviously, and the crew up in Skyfox to give us these images, and we have some information regarding what this was about and who this group is, but I would love to hear more from the actual demonstrators down below.
Yeah.
Definitely, and like I said, if it's positive or if it's negative, the way they presented it is the issue right now. And you've got a lot of people out here, and in the beginning there was some. We did see some fights break out, so it was very, very tense, and I'm glad it ended very out here. And you can see these officers are just one by one taking them into custody. You still got drivers out there in numbers just kind of watching and waiting and rolling tape, as it would be. That guy out there with the salmon pants, and he's got that nice Challenger, and that's way back there. I watched him as he got out of his car, so he's got a long walk to get back to his vehicle, and it just kind of shows you how long this is going to be here and how these drivers are handling that situation this morning. But again, some of them what they can to get out of that pack, and it is starting to thin out just a little bit, but a lot of folks are going to be very inconvenienced this morning as the freeway still completely shut down, and those protesters being taken into custody one by one.
Hope nobody is having a medical emergency or
I was thinking the same thing,
something that is really, you know, of a timely issue. So this is what I think about when you're stuck in something like that with no idea.
Nowhere to go.
Nowhere to go, no idea when it'll be resolved, no idea when you'll start moving again, and it's a situation you've been in for quite some time now. It's the most frustrating thing as a driver, we all know. So
it's one thing when you're and have a vantage point of what's happening, right? You can at least kind of get a sense of it. But when you're stuck in the far back, like so many of these drivers now at this point on the freeway, at this point maybe they've turned on the radio or they've heard what's happening, but still see it, it just adds to the frustration.
And they're not even seeing any flashing lights or anything, so they don't know what's happening in the middle of the pack or in the back. So
looks like we have just like a dozen or so left of the demonstrators down below. And some of them, I noticed, the cars pulled over on the shoulder there. It looked like it belonged to some of the demonstrators because I saw a couple of them come out of those cars and they sat down. So I don't know if they're going, you know, who's going to move those cars. I don't know if they're going to have them get in the car and move it, or a CHP officer might have to jump in. And maybe that, you know, now I'm just thinking to myself, I was saying, how did they even attempt this? How did they go about this? But perhaps the cars in the front with some of the demonstrators in slowed down, and that's what started this demonstration. They slowed down, they got out, they were able to block traffic, and maybe that's how they were able to get on the freeway, because it is not easy to get on this freeway. The 110 is busy, it's in the morning, there's no real opportunity to organize something like this unless that's how they did it.
Yeah, I venture to say that is how they did it. They probably were other people that are part of this group that were doing just that. They all got together, kind of synchronized their driving, and then just kind of slowed down and started letting people out of their vehicles, and that's how that traffic stopped. As far as that one vehicle over here to the side, that gray Prius, that I would venture right, either they made it talk to the driver and said, you know, we're just going to leave your keys in there so we can move it off the freeway, and or they're going to have to get that towed. But you can see some of the chanting as the last of them are waiting to plastic handcuffs and being taken into custody. But again, this is the best ending for this, is that everybody's just being taken into custody, nobody's been hurt or injured, and hopefully they'll have that freeway reopened here shortly.
And as you pan, you know, we want to show the patrol cars down below, because people are wondering, well, where are they taking them? They're walking them back here, and they have a number of vehicles, as you can see. So it looks like, you know, 2-3 people to a car. They're getting in the car, and then they'll drive off the freeway.
We haven't really seen those backup CHP patrol cars move, though, because eventually those will have to move out of the way in order to clear the freeway to allow traffic, the motorists to pass. But look at that, just how many officers have responded in order to make sure those demonstrators are taken to be processed. But earlier, it was quite a different scene. Obviously, we're approaching the end of this. Look at how things unfolded with angry motorists as demonstrators took over the 110. On the right side of your screen, you're seeing footage from earlier as this was all unfolding, and you can see just how tempers were flaring.
Yeah, some of those drivers clearly not happy with what was going on there and the protesters. I did see when we first arrived here, well, first got here, you saw some interaction, but it seemed almost more like some of those drivers, they clearly, but they were still in that verbal stage, and then you can see that it escalated point where it started turning into some pushing and shoving, and then actual as it would be. Again, I hope nobody was injured, and I also hope that there no charges are going to be pressed on either side of that, as this is, you know, something that is one of those things. It just happened. But take a look at that. That backup's still out here. The California Highway Patrol, they are still here, and they're working to clear that scene. The last of them, let's get the last of them being taken into custody. But like you said, Sandra and Araxia, they still got to get all those police cars or those CHP vehicles off of the freeway. That's going to be a few moments in itself. And I would venture to say these officers are not going to allow that traffic to start moving until the freeway is completely clear. We've seen this in the past, and just act. So they're going to stay here. They're probably going to get some motorcycle officers to just kind of ride up on the front, and or maybe or a squad car, just to kind of make sure that nobody tries to bum rush the scene. And everybody is safely off the freeway, but it is starting to happen out here. More and more of these officers are taking their newly acquired passengers and placing them into their vehicles, and then taking them probably to the CHP Central, where they're going to be processed. But again, what a scene this morning for sure.
People who were in the way back, they were able to, and I think we have some footage of that, people just reversed and turned around, and they were lucky enough to get stuck in this mess. But most of the people, obviously, you have a number of cars behind you, you're unable to maneuver, you have nowhere to go. So we're showing that image there to your right. There you see people just kind of, okay, this is my opportunity. I'm going to take it, reverse, and just get out of here. But a lot of people, most of those people are not so lucky. They had no choice but to get stuck. So on the right of your screen is the footage from earlier. On the left of your screen down below is live footage right now. And it looks like that was the last of traders. I believe we have Chelsea right now. Chelsea, you were in downtown. You were covering the story about Ace Hotel, so you were in a close proximity to all of this. All right, tell us what you're seeing and what's going on from where you are now.
Yeah, well, I can certainly speak to the aggravation. So we were only about a mile away, and it took us this long, almost 20 minutes, just to get to this point. It is just gridlock all throughout the downtown area and all the side streets as well. So everywhere you turn, you kind of get stuck. You can't turn anywhere else, and that's because of all of this backup. Now, you can see from our vantage point, and I know you've been looking Fox, but you can see how those CHP, those patrol vehicles, are blocking off the 110 freeway. There's no traffic coming southbound. This is a rare sight to see. I mean, you could just walk across the 110 freeway right smack in the middle of downtown LA. So certainly causing a lot of issues out there on the road. What you can't see, but what I can see from my vantage point, is the other direction, and that's the northbound lanes coming up here, and that's just jam-packed. It really doesn't look like anybody's moving northbound either. So you've got an impact not only on the freeway, of course, but then all of the side streets in and around the downtown Los Angeles area. So we were coming from the eastbound direction going westbound, but you can tell just looking at some of these side streets that this is happening all across, all of the surrounding areas around downtown, east and westbound, just impossible to get through. But again, it looks like this protest is potentially wrapping up relatively soon, or at least this portion of it here on the 110 freeway. We're a ways away. We're standing on the 3rd Street overpass, so we're, quite a ways down from where this is happening. But it looks like we are seeing some movement, people getting into cars, and we're actually seeing people arriving. I can hear some sirens as well. I'm not sure if that's from the related to this protest or if that's something different. A lot of kind of chaotic moments here in and around downtown Los Angeles. All right, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 new CHP patrol cars that are headed toward the protest itself. We're too far away to what they're doing, exactly what they're headed toward, but they're adding to the scene there. So unclear, at least from our exactly what's happening there. But if you look in the distance, and again, you can just see how far the backup is. You can just look northbound, just that sea of cars. Same scene looking the other direction as well for those people who are coming northbound on the 110 freeway. It's just gridlock. And again, coming in from downtown, if I look to the east right now, it just looks like a parking lot. Nobody's moving. We were, again, trying to sneak our way through here and just couldn't quite get here. I'm hearing in my ear that we've got something that we want to go to. Is that right?
Say thank you so much for that from your vantage point. Let's go to Stu right now for the very latest on what we're seeing from there.
Well, you can see that all those protesters have been cuffed and placed in the vehicles. Now, the cars are not ripped away, so they are still there on scene. A number of officers are still here also walking the freeway, just picking up all the debris, leaflets, whatever they left behind. You can see that one vehicle, Sandra and Roxy, you were talking about it, like how are they going to get that off of the freeway? I don't know if that driver left the key or they made some arrangements, but this one will have, they probably have left the key. So they're probably going to drive that one off, which is going to make it maybe just a little bit quicker, but this still probably for another half an hour or so as the officers from the California are still making their way through here, talking to some of these folks. I don't know if that's the guy that was involved in the fist fight earlier on, and or maybe that's another one of the protesters, like you said, how they were getting onto the freeway. Maybe that's one of their rides, as it would be, but again, somebody else being taken into custody, their vehicle. Also, they probably made some sort of deal. They're going to be able to drive it off of the freeway. So they still have a lot of things they need to sort. Going to happen very, very quickly, but I would venture to say within the next 15, maybe 30 minutes, they might have the 110 South opened up. Again, some of these folks have been sitting here since about 9:20, 9:15 this morning. So these folks here are going to be late to wherever they need to be, but thank goodness in the end, nobody was hurt.
It's interesting to see the Skyfox shot and then the ground shot with Chelsea and her photographer, because when you're looking from above, you don't realize right? When you have this ground shot, you just see how many patrol vehicles are on that scene, how many officers are involved. It's just a very different kind of tensity.
There's, you know, and I got to tell you, anybody that knows me knows this too, is I've always loved my job, and being up here, you get that big perspective, you get to see everything, and you get to show people exactly what's going on and why it's going on. Looks like one of the vehicles right there, that was almost going to be one of my things. So many times, if I get caught in traffic, I might run. I'm that guy. E is always for just enough. But you can see it right there. Somebody's car needs to get jump started, so they're going to try to do that as well. But all this was caused by that protest that was out here on the freeway this morning. Again, California Highway Patrol doing what they can as quickly as possible just to get the flow of traffic moving. And once again, and everybody that was protesting, they all have been taken. Not arrested. There's a difference there. They've been taken into custody, placed in all of these, at least one in each of these vehicles down there. And as you said, all of them need to leave the freeway as well. There's probably going to be more than a few minutes. You see at least one arriving. So I wonder what that is here for. Maybe that's for the jump start. But again, what a scene. How hectic and chaotic can it get? It's just Wednesday, folks. And again, the southbound 110 closed. All the lanes on the southbound side have been closed, and it's probably going to be here for at least another 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, and we saw a tow truck down there as well, so, you know, maybe that might be used at some point as well. So if you're just joining us, it's 10:21, obviously not the regular type of show we usually do on Good Day LA, because we've been following this story closely. We've been on the scene for quite a while now, but it looks like, according to the press release by this group that they put out, this began at about 9:05 when their demonstration began. And the group is, I'm reading from what they're saying here, American Jews and Allies connected with, if not now, LA. American Jews, we refuse to be silent. So they've come together. We saw a number of them wearing that same black shirt, sweatshirt, it looks like, with the white letter. not in our name. They are holding this protest. They were singing, chanting, basically talking about how they want a ceasefire now, no money for war crimes. They obviously have a different stance and are against the Israeli government's stance on Hamas or how they're conducting the operation in Gaza. And so they've come together. They had a giant 7-foot menorah right there, smack in the middle of the freeway. There you see it on the right of your screen. And they just came and sat there, linked arms, and they've been there for over an hour at this point, maybe even longer. And slowly but surely, police or CHP began to arrive, and one by one, they were taken into custody. Yeah. So it's taken quite a while. A number of vehicles obviously stuck here. The traffic buildup is awful. It's atrocious. And some people were lucky enough to be able to reverse and get out of that mess, but most people had nowhere to go.
Yeah, the backup continued all the way to the 5 freeway because of this for over an hour now. And in the early stages of this demonstration, you did see some motorists come out and demonstrators angrily to clear open the pathway so that cars can move, but clearly the demonstrators are trying to get their voice heard, their message across, and that started tempers flaring from motorists wanting to get to where they needed to go and demonstrators refusing and trying to make their stance. At one point we saw a motorist pour water on one of the protesters, some fist flying, and just heated arguments in the beginning of this demonstration. You see the massive response there as well on the right side of your screen, and from our ground shot from our crew there of CHP officers and patrol vehicles that were needed that these demonstrators could get off the freeway safely after they were zip tied or cuffed, rather, I should say, and then put into those patrol cars to be processed in order to clear up this scene. But right now, more than an still, the 110 freeway shut down and not open to traffic. Those vehicles, those motorists not able to get through yet.
So both of these monitors that you see in front of you, one of them is the view from Skyfox. This is a live image. And then on the left there in a smaller screen, that is a live view as well, but that's from the ground vantage point. So some of the vehicles that we're assuming belong to the demonstrators only because they were in the very front of the row, and we saw some of the demonstrators get into those vehicles, and we're assuming that's how this all began, that they just came to a stop in the middle of the freeway and got out of their cars. They're on the side of the road there. They're pulled to the side of the road. There was some issue with, I guess, one of the vehicles needed to get jump start. They're just trying to figure out who's who still and what's going on so they can get this traffic flowing. And Stu, you're right. When you said this could take a while, I'm like, oh no, you know, it looks like they got them all out. This is going to go quickly. Not so much. We're still in this.
Yeah, not so much. And they, you know what, it's right. I believe you're exactly right when you said they're still trying to sort things out. Some of those vehicles up in that front row there, you can see the officers talking to this one driver right there. I wonder if they're asking if you are part of that, a part of the protest, and or if you are just here, you know, just got caught in it. I can tell you that the California Highway Patrol, they've got a number of officers down there, and of course you've got a couple of cars that one of them couldn't start. That was another interesting thing, was you're wondering if that was a protester or just somebody's vehicle that wouldn't start, because the driver of that car is well, nope, that driver's still in there, but the other one, that white one, they took this driver into custody, and I believe that she was trying to help jumpstart that other vehicle. So it is interesting in itself. It was dynamic would be a great word to use, but right now the clearing, the opening up of the freeway, that's what everybody's waiting on right now, and it's not going to happen very quickly. California Patrol, they do everything very organized, and look at the number of officers that are down there, and again, each one of those probably has a passenger in that vehicle them to Central Station, do the processing, or maybe they might figure out other places, but they're still settling these folks in their cars. Checked and made sure that they don't have anything on them. You know, we've all watched the shows. We know how that goes, and that all takes time. And then again, like you said, they're still trying to sort out who's who. The ones that didn't get out of their vehicles, they want to make sure that anybody that was with that protest is taken in at least, but right now there are a lot of folks just patiently waiting for the California Highway Patrol to move out of the way so they can reopen the 110 Freeway South.
A lot of issues at play, certainly, Stu. Thank you. Let's go back to Chelsea, who has a ground shot of what's happening. Anything different from your view, Chelsea?
Well, I'll tell you, it's a lot of chaos and frustration on the streets around the 110 freeway. You can tell some of these drivers are getting off where we are on the 3rd Street exit. They're coming from the northbound, and I can just tell from looking at their faces, they are exasperated. They are exhausted. They're yelling, some of them rolling down their windows and just because they've been sitting on the northbound side for some time now. It's just a parking lot going that direction as well. So it's both directions. The people who are driving along them that are being impacted. Now, we're seeing right now some more CHP officers. Actually, this looks like an LAPD officer that are coming along the 3rd Street entrance. From our vantage point, we're able to see on the westbound side of the freeway, that's where these vehicles onto the freeway. We've also seen some officers, CHP officers, who've been walking on the off-ramp of the freeway and directing these cars, these CHP officers, onto the freeway. Now, the ones that we just heard in the background are actually going the opposite direction, so that's good. But there's a lot of confusion, a lot of chaos. As we had said earlier, we were about a mile away when we heard about this, so not far, and it took us at least 20, 25, 30 minutes 1 mile going in downtown LA, and that's because every single street is just gridlocked in the surrounding areas. I mean, you try to turn left, but no one's moving in the left-hand lane. You try to go straight, but you're just going through the lights, and they're just going red, green, yellow, and they're not moving because there's just nowhere for people to go. They can't get on the freeway. They can't get off the freeway. So it's really having a big impact on the morning commute, people just trying to get where they're going. And again, from just looking at these people's faces who are exiting the freeway, who've been coming northbound along the one, a lot of frustration and a lot of confusion because from their vantage point as well, they can't see what's going on ahead. They may be listening, may have some information, but from where we're standing, they can't see this block ahead to see what's going on. And then obviously there's that looky the people who are going northbound. When they finally do get to that point, they see all these rows of CHP officers. So they're slowing down to get a look at what's happening from the again, just really chaotic scene from out here. And you can hear, we keep hearing these new, let's see, that's LAPD. We're seeing a lot of emergency personnel coming off the 110 freeway. And again, they're going the opposite direction. Actually, if I look on, what is this, Beaudry Avenue, it looks like they're stopping in some sort of a formation in front of the LAPD, or LA School District Headquarters, excuse me. That must be related in some way. It looks like they're trying to walk here. And Carlos may be trying to spin around. Let's just see if we can show you this. So this is Beaudry Avenue. We're standing again overpass. Look up here. You can see all these officers. Those were what we heard in the background just a second ago. They were coming off the freeway and then going toward Beaudry, and then they took a left on Beaudry. And you can see they're all kind of lining up in that area. Some of them getting out of their cars. They appear to be talking and coordinating something. None of these people have gone back to go onto the freeway, but it looks like they're staging something. Appears to be related in some way. Again, those are LAPD and CHP. We also saw a fire engine at one point. I believe that was LA City Fire. They don't appear to be in this staging area. So again, not quite sure what that is. But again, standing on the third traffic going that way, I look this way, and it's just a line of cars. Also, if we can pan, let's see if we can swing all the way over to the northbound lanes here. Take a look at that. So you can see a little bit coming northbound, but not a lot. And so some people are trying to get off this exit. This is where they're coming off. And again, we're just looking at their faces, and you can just tell how exhausted, how exasperated they are. I mean, let's look at some of these people exiting the freeway. There's a red vehicle about to come up. People rolling down their windows, looking, trying to see what's going on, what's been causing all of these delays. A lot of frustration here for a lot of people. So again, we're monitoring what's happening here on Beaudry Avenue. Not what this is, but it appears to be related. They're all looking this way. I can see one officer there. He's got some yellow crime tape. Looks like he may be about to rope something off. So, yeah, not clear what that is, but we will. Here in downtown LA.
We did see a shot from your vantage point. I'm curious about the 2 school buses that have been stuck in the middle of this massive traffic jam for over an hour. Are there outside? I mean, do they look restless? I don't know. I thought I saw a shot from your vantage point, and it's just so sad to see if there are kids in there not knowing what's going on or just having to wait this out as well.
I can't even imagine how frustrating and scary that must be if there are any kids on. I'm guessing we were probably pushed in a little bit on our lens. We're, as you can see from here, we're quite a ways away. We still have another overpass and off ramp before we see the scene. So we're quite a ways away. I and see if there's any kids on those school buses. From where we're standing, it looks like there's one, two, three school buses. Carlos, I think my colleague, is confirming that. So, and we're looking at a shot of it right now as well. Yeah, not clear if there's any kids on those buses, but.
Yeah, we don't, like, it's hard to tell, obviously. We're just kind of trying to do our best to guess. I don't see anyone. Oh, I do see some. Do you see?
Oh,
yep, there are kids on the bus because I do moving in there. So there are people on the bus. Yes, there are.
Unfortunate. Either on the way to school or a field trip.
You guys, we're now seeing the first of the cars getting through this. Do you see this in that far lane? We've seen a couple of motorcycles that were able to get through. This car, I wish I could see their faces. I'm sure they must be so relieved to finally be getting through this, because these people who are coming through right now were obviously at the very front of it. It's this entire thing from start to finish. Yeah, so look, so now we're opening at least 3 lanes, it looks like.
Okay.
All right, Chelsea.
All right, great job, you and Carlos. Thank you so much for providing us these images and that information from where you are. Let's go back to Stu up in Skyfox. So finally, slowly, things are starting to move.
Yep, things are starting to move. California Highway Patrol, that's one of the things they're always all about, is to keep that freeway moving, and they are doing it this morning. Now, what it looks like they're doing is they're not allowing any of the off-ramps to be used. You can see those California Highway Patrol vehicles that were blocking the southbound lanes. Now, we actually moved Skyfox around, so if you've been watching all this time, it might be a little off-putting because we've turned around. Now we're actually looking to they're not allowing anybody to take any of those off-ramps, and they're just allowing people to stay onto the 110 South. And at least it is going to get get it opened up. We're going to move Skyfox off to the south a little bit. We'll turn it back around so you can see some of that traffic. But the 110 freeway technically has reopened all the off-ramps. So that's going to be from 3rd all the way down to 9th Street. You're not going to be able to get off of there because that is going to be this area that you see right there. But the California Highway Patrol, they've got it opened up so that at least some of these folks are going to start moving, and we saw it. We peeked inside there. There's our kids on those buses. Those poor kids having to sit out there. But you know what? Those new buses, they've got air conditioning. They got cushioned seats. It's not like when we went to school back in the day.
Buses are moving, thankfully, now. 3 lanes open there on the 110 freeway following that demonstration, which has lasted over an hour at this point, shutting down the freeway there. What a scene. What a scene. But at least things are moving. Stu, thanks so much. Appreciate all of the information provided for us in the last hour or so. And it does look like, because some of those vehicles were perhaps belonging to those demonstrators, they're pulled to the side. These are kind of only allowing those 3 lanes to be open at this point. We'll see when fully that freeway opens up. We'll keep an eye on things. So we're going to take a short break, since we haven't taken one for a while, and then we'll come back and see what the situation is.
We fight for the rights of riders every day. We give back millions to support the motorcycle community because we are riders, and motorcycle law is all we do. If you're injured in a motorcycle accident, don't fight the insurance companies with just any lawyer. Call 1-800-4BIKERS. We ride, we care, we win. You go down, call Russ Brown. Motorcycle attorneys.
All right, I'll see what